7:43 if you need to set your clock now on your breakfast rush. It's Radio Al Ansar, and this morning joined by Zubair and Nabeelah, the team from Kharwa Financial Accounting Services. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the breakfast rush once again.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's good to be back.
Good to have you back in the studio. Zubair, what are we discussing today?
So the plan was to discuss registered companies that are trading. However, in light of the recent events, we feel it's important to first discuss the obligations related to domestic employees. There is a lot of hype around the 30th of June deadline. So there is a deadline. However, this has nothing to do with foreigners. The 30th of June deadline we're referring to is related to the workers' compensation domestic registration that's needed.
Nabeelah, what does this even mean?
So historically, it was only commercial employers who were obligated to register for UIF and workmen's compensation. This changed in 2021. Since the amendment in 2021, anyone employing a domestic employee, be it a domestic helper or a gardener, such employer must be registered with the Department of Labour for both UIF and workmen's compensation.
Okay, why?
So it's to protect this class of employees. To elaborate, let's say your domestic worker gets involved, gets injured on duty. Will you be able to pay for the best treatment available, or will you just shun them off to the government hospital where the services are, rather not say? So with the workers' compensation, the person should be able to access the best care as the workers' compensation office will pick up the bill.
Another example is if you dismiss your domestic and you are registered with UIF, they can go to UIF and claim benefits.
Okay. So there have been some threatening messages circulating regarding domestic employees and fines. What do we need to ensure, or what do we need to do to ensure compliance?
Actually, it's quite simple to be compliant. You need to be registered with the Department of Labour for both UIF and workers' compensation as a domestic employer. You need to ensure that you pay according to the hours worked at the appropriate rate. The current rate for domestic workers is 30 Rand 26 per hour.
Okay.
You need to make sure that the person you employ is allowed to work in South Africa. So if they are a foreigner, they need to have a valid passport and an appropriate working visa. It can't be a holiday visa, it can't be spousal visa, it has to be a working visa. You have to have a written contract setting out their duties, working hours, rates of pay, etc. And the last thing is that you have to provide them with the pay slip. So if Department of Labour comes and does an inspection, these are the things that they're looking for.
Now, I know we're supposed to go to the next question, but you mentioned something that I want to look into really quickly. What's that hourly rate again for your domestic employee?
It's 30 Rand 26 per hour.
Per hour?
That's correct.
Assuming your domestic works an 8-hour day, your domestic should be getting nothing less than 242 Rands and 8 cents per day.
That's correct. So in that 8 hours, if they have the tea break and the lunch break which they're entitled to,
yes,
then you don't pay them for the 8 hours, you pay them the 7 hours. 7? That's correct. So they'll take a half an hour lunch break and 2 15-minute tea breaks.
Right.
So effectively they're working. So the law is you pay them for the hours that they work.
So 211.82 would be the amount for 7 hours if your domestic is working. And the reason I'm stressing on this is to you, the listener that's listening in right now with a domestic employee, if you're not hitting that mark, you got to go think twice about it now. You got to go reevaluate what you're doing because of everything else that Zubair and Nabeelah are talking about this morning. You're going to go reevaluate your registrations for workmen's comp, for UIF, and to all of that. Talking about all of that, is there anything else regarding domestics, Nabeelah?
You can contact us today and let us help you get compliant as a domestic employer and save yourself a lot of stress for when labor inspectors visit because the department has hired a lot more inspectors.
Also with regard to that, just to add one more thing, is that this sector of the working community has largely been left out of the net. And really they've been, for the lack of a better word, they've been oppressed. So this is not a bad thing. I mean, you know, if you look at the cost of living, if you look at everything that domestic worker does, and people will argue that, no, you know what, we give them accommodation. Yes, all that's taken in the law. So if you give a person accommodation, you put a value to it, that becomes part of their package. So don't think that, listen, I'm giving them accommodation so I don't have to pay them per hour or anything like that. Be a good human being.
Now, let's discuss registered companies that are trading. what are the obligations of a trading company, Nabeelah?
So, similar to the dormant company that we discussed last week, the obligations lie with CIPC and SARS. CIPC requires an annual return stating the turnover the company did for the year, as well as the beneficial ownership declaration. This is going to identify the actual individual that benefits from the company structure. This is required to keep the company status as in business. Non-submission of annual returns can result in the company being deregistered with CIPC. When this happens, the bank is informed and can freeze the company bank account.
What about SARS obligations, Zubair?
At the minimum, provisional tax returns are due twice a year, August and February for companies with a February year end, and an annual tax return due 12 months after the company's financial year end. You know, we've discussed this previously where we said that submitting a tax return doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be paying tax. There's two aspects of it. One is submission of the return, which is a statutory requirement, and the tax part of it is dependent on whether you make profit or not. So whether the company is trading, not trading, whatever the case may be, you still have to submit the tax return.
Anything else that they should be concerned about, Nabeelah?
Yes, so if they have staff, they need to be registered for PAYE, UIF, and workman's compensation. UIF and workman's comp registrations, as we discussed, are with the Department of Labour, and your PAYE registration will be done with SARS. Once the registrations are through, you will need to submit a PAYE return monthly to SARS. You will pay the UIF over to SARS, and they'll pay it over to the Department of Labour, and then annually you'll submit a return of earnings for workman's compensation.
So when does a VAT registration need to be considered?
So there are two types of VAT registration, a voluntary and a compulsory. The compulsory VAT registration needs to be done once the company reaches the turnover threshold of 2.3 million rand. This was changed now in April 2026. Prior to this, for the last, I can't remember how many years, the threshold used to be 1 million rand.
Yeah.
And prior to that, the threshold was 300,000 rand. So the threshold jumped from 300,000 to 1 million rand, stayed for 1 million rand for many years.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at 2.3 million rand is the threshold with regard to compulsory registrations.
What we have seen recently is that even though the threshold has gone to 2.3 million, companies that exceeded the 1 million rand threshold in the last 2 years are now being automatically registered for VAT, despite the fact that the threshold has gone up to 2.3.
Now, I'm sure if somebody's got questions with regard to that, they can get in contact with you and pose as many questions as they can.
Correct. And then the voluntary VAT registration is done for various reasons. Most commonly, it's for tenders, or if your customers request it, or if it's a requirement for you to get a contract.
Yes.
To be eligible, the turnover needs to exceed 120,000 in the past 12 months. Or you have a signed contract stating the value of that turnover.
There you go. Before we get to listener interaction, because our listeners are asking questions that you guys need to answer, we can't answer these questions. So, Nabeelah, hot seats, Zubair, hot seats, you guys. There's some, and I'm pretty certain you've had these questions in the office already. And I'm sure somebody's already typing out that email to you, Nabeelah, and saying, so let's put it on air already, right? Sure. What classifies a domestic as a full-time worker?
From what I know, it's if they work for you more than 24 hours in a month.
A month?
Yeah, not a day, not a week, a month.
Next question. Does this apply to full-time domestic workers only, or does it include part-time domestic workers?
So coming back to what Nabeelah just said, so if a part-time person works more than 24 hours in a month,
a whole month,
that's correct, they fall within the full-time employment ambit. So they fall within the ambit of the law. So they may work 25 hours, 26 hours, then you become liable for this sort of workers' compensation and UIF registration.
Okay, so Salams, won't the domestic worker get less money after paying UIF, etc.?
Well, technically, yes. They'll get, it's 1%. It's 1% that they'll pay. But it's a 1% insurance that they are paying. So when you do dismiss them, at least they'll have something to fall back on and claim from the Department of Labour.
So let's work on this next question, right? And this is now just using the information that you've just given us a minute ago.
Sure.
The question is, do I still register them even if they work 2 days a week? Or I'm assuming it's a week.
So if they're working 2 days a week, and let's say, for example, they are working 6 hours a day, that's 12 hours a week, that's
Yeah.
48 hours a month. Then
yes.
Then you've made the
If
24
they're working
hours.
for 2 hours a day, twice a week, that's 4 hours a week, 16 weeks in a month, then you don't need to register. So it's a 24 hours
Yeah.
per month that you need to
Yeah.
keep an eye on.
There you go. So, just to simplify that one for you, write it down. The time they start work, the time they finish work, and you count the hours in between. You do that as the employer. Write it down for yourself. So you know 24 hours for an entire month. If your domestic is working 24 hours for an entire month, yes, you must register. So you write it down and you do the calculation for yourself.
Do it for yourself. And then also, just thought crossed my mind is a lot of people say, listen, I can only afford to pay so much.
Yeah.
I say, that's fine, that's not a problem. You can afford to pay so much, then adjust the hours accordingly. So if you can afford to pay the person for 20 hours a month, then
Yeah.
let them work 20
20
hours.
hours a
Don't
month.
make them work 150 hours a month
Yeah.
and pay them for 20 hours.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
dear.
abuse. I was waiting for this question. I knew it's going to come. And here it is. It pops on the screen. It says, so if my domestic works for me and 3 other people, do we all register the same worker?
Yes.
There's a unanimous yes.
That's correct. Because remember, you as the employer are
Yeah.
registering to get a UIF and workers' compensation number. That person that works under you will fall within that number.
Yeah.
So as the employer, the obligations on the employer to register, not the employee. So they can have 10 jobs. That's
Yes,
irrespective.
correct.
The fact that they're working for you in more than 24 hours a month,
Yep.
you have to be registered.
There you go. Now, as you see, boys and girls, the team from Kharwa Financial Accounting Services ready to answer all of your questions. If you have more, how do they get the questions to you?
They can call us on 031 207 4440, or my email address is Nabeelah, NABEELA, at kfas.co.za, or our website is www.kfas.co.za, and there is a WhatsApp button on the website that will take you directly to
Let
us.
me give you a WhatsApp number as well, because I realize a lot of people prefer
Just using WhatsApp.
consulting on
Message,
WhatsApp.
yes.
Yeah.
They can WhatsApp on us on 084 578 6626. 084 578 6626, and somebody will reply to your WhatsApp.
Appreciate the information. Always brilliant, always informative. Looking forward to next week.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. Kharwa Financial Accounting Services. Now, you know how to get a hold of them. Should you have more questions and you need a little bit more advice, you want to talk about it, you want to find out how to do the registrations, they can help you get it done.
Join us again tomorrow morning on TBR.